Budgeting and Managing Fiscal Resources by Angela
Budgeting
McAndrew.
and Managing Fiscal
Narrated
Resources
by Peter
Angela McAndrew. Narrated by Peter McAndrew.
The budgetary process is the first phase of the financial management cycle. A budget will produce a valuable planning tool to use as a guide to the fiscal management and operation of an organization, department, or individual unit. The budget is a written spending plan and is expressed in dollars. Budgets are only as accurate as the information that is input to them and the thoroughness of the process. Planning a budget requires that the objectives and future goals of the entity involved are thoroughly reviewed. This will allow the entity to recognize what tasks must be completed and align the organizational efforts to complete those goals and objectives. According to Klakowski, the budget process is a formal quantitative expression of management's plans, intentions, and expectations. Initiating a plan according to Sullivan includes the following points. Demographics, which would include the communities in the area and whether or not there are any competing institutions serving the same population. Sources of revenue. Is your area comprised of more Medicare patients or privately insured patients? Statistical data is concerned with the daily census, the average length of stay, and the number of surgeries performed. Expenses, including inflation. Regulatory changes, which are legislative mandates that may affect the institution, such as nurse-to-patient ratio, could have a catastrophic effect on the budget of an institution. Organizational changes, like new management, the unionization of the workforce, or outsourcing of services. First and foremost, you must choose the type of budget you intend to implement. The various types of budgets include an incremental budget. This type of budget is also referred to as a line-by-line budget. It is usually produced using a worksheet. The worksheet lists and categorizes each expense. The best part about this type of budget is the fact that it is relatively simple to prepare. A zero-based budget is a bit more difficult to prepare insofar as it requires the person producing the budget to have a justification for each activity and expense as if it had never been done before. This is a labor-intensive method of producing a budget, and it may not be right for smaller departments or facilities. Finally, there are the fixed or variable budgets. Obviously, from the title you can surmise that a fixed budget is set in stone and does not take into account variables that may impact a department over the course of the fiscal year. Equally obvious is the fact that variable budgets may be changed as needed to reflect occurrences or unforeseen circumstances that may occur during the course of the fiscal year. In determining the operating budget, the organization will need to prepare a revenue budget. A revenue budget is simply an attempt by the organization to project their income for the fiscal year in question, while an expense budget is based upon the anticipated costs of running the organization for the entire fiscal year. Here's an interesting fact. In the 21st century, nursing budgets generally account for the greatest share of the total expenses in healthcare institutions. Participation in fiscal planning has become a fundamental and powerful tool for nursing. Determining the salary budget. As the title suggests, a salary budget attempts to anticipate the amount that will be needed to pay the company's personnel and staff. Among the things that need to be considered in this are benefits to employees, differences in shift, overtime, on-call hours, premiums, salary increases, and additional considerations. Managing the expense budget is an operation that takes into account operating expenses that are not related to paying one's employees. This will include everything from paper clips to maintenance that must be performed, and if need be, rental office space or the physical building from which the facility operates. A common error in budgeting, as pointed out by Mitten, Dion, and Donaldson, occurs when the organization initiates cuts when resources are scarce and uses less restraint when funds are available. They maintain that resource management needs to remain steady regardless of the fiscal climate. Managing one's operating expenses, supplies, maintenance, and rent, if not done properly, can be an absolute vortex down which money will empty itself and deplete the organization. A capital budget is nothing more than an organization's vision of its future goals. A capital budget would be used for renovation of the existing physical plant, the equipment used by the organization, and any future construction plans. The timetable for budgeting process is the timetable for creating a budget for an organization, which will depend upon its size and the diversity and scope of its goals. Troubleshooting, of course, as in any business, unforeseen circumstances may arise. These may disrupt the revenue stream and create budgetary problems. Hartman, Smith, Heffler, and Freeman state that nearly every year in the past 40, healthcare spending has greatly overshadowed economic growth. This has put a strain on Medicare reimbursement. This is one of the reasons that over the last several years, strict requirements have been put into place for reimbursement. Staff impact on budget through excessive overtime or turnover as well. Wasteful habits with medical equipment and supplies can be reined in with education to improve performance, as evidenced by hospitals with magnet status. Monitoring budgetary performance during the year is a function of the accounting department. A good accounting department will constantly have their finger on the pulse of monies that come and go through the organization and may often be able to point out an impending budgetary problem before it actually occurs. At this time, please take a few minutes to enjoy a short video. In closing, a well-managed budgetary process is vitally important to any organization, be it an individual household or a multi-state healthcare entity. Thank you for your attention.